The Pacific region woke up to a dramatic turn of events this week. The United States launched a $1.5 million operation against Chinese ships near contested waters. Moments after this bold move, Japan, America's closest ally in the region, shocked the world by backing out of a planned joint mission. For many, this was the moment the Pacific crisis began. Officials say the U.S. targeted Chinese vessels that were reportedly gathering sensitive undersea data. These ships were close to areas vital for international shipping and security. The operation was swift and precise, but its impact was immediate and far-reaching. News of Japan's sudden withdrawal added tension to an already volatile situation. Leaders across Asia and the West called emergency meetings to assess what this could mean for peace and security in the region. Markets reacted with uncertainty, and military analysts warned that the balance of power in the Pacific might be changing. Questions swirled. Why did Japan pull out? What will China do next? Is this the start of a bigger conflict? As the dust settles, all eyes are on the Pacific. World leaders, economists, and security experts are watching closely. The stakes are high, not just for the countries involved, but for the entire world. China's push to dominate the Pacific has been building for years. Their latest move? A massive undersea mapping campaign using high-tech research ships. The Dongfeng Hong 3, one of China's most advanced vessels, has been seen near Taiwan, Guam, and other strategic locations. Officially, these missions are for science. Experts, however, say the real goal is military advantage. By mapping the ocean floor and placing underwater sensors, China is gaining detailed knowledge of the sea's hidden routes. This information is crucial for submarine warfare. If China knows every hill and trench below the waves, its subs can move silently and spot enemy vessels more easily. That's a big worry for the US and its allies. Satellite images and intelligence reports show Chinese ships dropping sensors near key shipping lanes. These sensors can track submarines, collect ocean data, and even detect underwater drones. It's like putting ears under the ocean, says Professor Li Wen, an oceanography expert. Whoever controls the undersea environment controls the future of naval warfare. China's military moves are not just about defense. They send a message. China is ready to protect its interests and push back against any foreign presence in its near seas. The United States' $1.5 million operation was not just about dollars, it was a signal. U.S. officials authorized a precise strike against Chinese research ships, claiming these vessels were gathering intelligence too close to American and allied waters. The operation was meant to stop China from setting up a network of undersea sensors that could threaten U.S. submarines. This move was planned with care. Satellite data tracked the Chinese ships' movements for weeks. Once the U.S. was sure of their intentions, Navy units moved in to disable, seize, or shadow the vessels. The cost covered advanced drones, cyber tools, and electronic jamming equipment used during the operation. It was a clear show of technological strength. The U.S. wanted to make it clear, "We see what you're doing, and we won't stand for it," said defense analyst Emily Tran. The action was risky. It raised the chance of direct confrontation, but U.S. leaders felt it was necessary to protect key sea routes and maintain the balance of power. The operation's timing, just before a major joint drill with Japan, made it even more dramatic when Japan decided to pull out at the last minute. Japan's decision to back out of the joint U.S. operation stunned its allies. For decades, Japan has stood side by side with America in Pacific security matters. This time, however, Tokyo announced its withdrawal just hours before the mission began. Officials cited unexpected developments and national priorities, but the real reasons remain unclear. Some insiders suggest Japan was worried about escalating the crisis. Others say internal politics or public opinion played a role. Whatever the cause, the move caught U.S. planners off guard. Allies across Asia expressed concern and confusion. It's rare for Japan to break ranks, noted security expert Hiroshi Takeda. This could change how partners view Japanese reliability. The surprise withdrawal created tension behind closed doors. South Korea, Australia, and other regional powers scrambled to understand what Japan's move meant for collective security. In Washington, officials stressed that the alliance remained strong, but the doubts lingered. For China, the moment was a diplomatic win. Beijing quickly praised Japan's restraint, hoping to drive a wedge between allied powers. The Pacific, once unified in its response to China, now faces new questions about trust and commitment. The Pacific crisis has not stayed in military circles, it's shaking the global economy. The United States' action and Japan's withdrawal triggered immediate changes in shipping patterns. Insurance rates for vessels in the region soared. Some cargo ships turned away from disputed routes, choosing longer, costlier paths to avoid trouble. Major ports in Japan, China, and Southeast Asia saw delays and confusion. Traders worried about disruptions to electronics, cars, and energy supplies. Stock markets in Tokyo, Shanghai, and New York dipped on news of rising tensions. The Pacific is the world's economic heart, said economist Sarah Kim. Any shock here affects everyone, from factories in Vietnam to tech firms in California. The price of oil briefly spiked as tankers rerouted and companies braced for possible blockades. Insurance executives warned that continued tension could add billions to the cost of shipping. Exporters talked of holding back goods until the political storm calms. Even if fighting never breaks out, the economic fallout is real. Every day of uncertainty adds to the world's worries about supply chains and growth. The sudden crisis has forced countries to rethink their alliances and military plans. The United States is now reviewing its defense posture in the Pacific, speeding up talks with Australia, South Korea, and the Philippines. Japan's move has made some allies nervous, but it's also pushed others closer together. New joint exercises are being planned across the region. Australia and the United States have announced more naval patrols. South Korea is increasing its own readiness, worried that instability could spread. Experts say every country in the Pacific is now re-examining its defense commitments and military spending. China, meanwhile, is using the moment to rally support from Russia. The two recently held joint bomber patrols over the Sea of Japan, sending a message of unity against Western influence. Russia's involvement adds another layer of complexity, raising fears of a bigger standoff. The balance of power is shifting and no one is sure what comes next. Many fear that more mistakes or misunderstandings could spark a larger conflict. Satellites have played a key role in understanding the current crisis. High-resolution images captured Chinese ships laying underwater sensors and mapping the seabed near important shipping lanes. These images were shared with allies, confirming fears about China's military intentions. Experts analyzing the data saw patterns that matched earlier Chinese naval exercises. The scale and precision of these missions are unlike anything we've seen before, said Dr. Mei Lin, a satellite intelligence specialist. Publicly released images showed unusual ship movements and electronic interference zones, supporting claims of undersea sensor activity. The United States also used satellite and drone surveillance during its $1.5 million operation. Real-time video feeds allowed commanders to track Chinese responses and adjust tactics on the fly. Analysts say this blend of technology and intelligence is changing how modern conflicts unfold, making them faster, but also riskier. These tools give decision-makers a clearer view of the crisis. But as technology advances, the risk of miscalculation grows. The crisis is not just on the surface. Beneath the waves, submarines from several nations are quietly moving into position. The United States, China, and Russia all have advanced submarines in the area, capable of gathering intelligence and launching weapons if needed. Undersea cables and sensors are now prime targets. In the skies, United States B-52 bombers have flown alongside Japanese and Australian fighter jets. China has responded with its own air patrols, including the powerful J-15 fighter and the Liaoning aircraft carrier group. Each side is testing the other's defenses, looking for weaknesses and sending signals of strength. The Pacific is like a chessboard now, says military strategist Mark O'Connor. Every move matters. One mistake, and things could escalate quickly. The maneuvers are risky, with the chance of accidental encounters or misread signals always present. As the high-stakes game continues, commanders on all sides are under pressure to avoid disaster, while protecting their interests. No one knows exactly what will happen next in the Pacific. The United States is calling for calm, but remains ready to act. China insists it's defending its own territory and interests. Japan, after its surprise withdrawal, is trying to reassure both its citizens and its allies. World leaders are urging restraint and dialogue. Peace, they say, is still possible, but only if everyone is willing to compromise. Economists warn that the fallout from continued tension could slow global growth for years. Military experts fear a new arms race in the region. For now, the world is watching. The Pacific crisis is a test of strength, strategy, and diplomacy. What happens here will shape the future, not just for the region, but for everyone, everywhere. As the dust begins to settle over the Pacific, the world braces for what comes after the crisis. In the immediate aftermath, shipping lanes remain under tight surveillance, and major economies scramble to adapt to new trade realities. Global supply chains, already strained, are being rerouted, some permanently. Small island nations caught in the middle are seeking new alliances and emergency aid to stabilize their economies. Meanwhile, a new technological race is quietly unfolding. Nations are investing heavily in cyber defense, satellite monitoring, and unmanned systems to secure their interests. Think tanks and military planners are reimagining what future conflict and cooperation might look like in these waters. Diplomatic initiatives are gaining momentum. International organizations are proposing new treaties to manage disputes and prevent escalation. There's talk of a Pacific Security Forum, bringing together not just regional powers, but also voices from smaller states and global players. But uncertainty lingers. Will this crisis lead to a lasting peace, or merely set the stage for the next confrontation? Experts warn that the lessons learned now will shape the Pacific's balance of power for decades to come. One thing is clear: the world must adapt to a new reality, where the Pacific is not just a crossroads of trade and culture, but a front line for the future. As the world digests the aftermath of the Pacific crisis, diplomatic channels light up across the globe. Neighboring countries, Australia, South Korea, and the Philippines, move quickly to convene emergency summits, determined to avoid a repeat of recent turmoil. Their leaders issue joint statements calling for restraint and renewed dialogue among all parties. International organizations, from the United Nations to ASEAN, step into the spotlight. UN envoys shuttle between capitals, brokering talks, and proposing confidence-building measures. The International Maritime Organization drafts new guidelines for safe passage in contested waters, while ASEAN pushes for a regional code of conduct to prevent military miscalculations. Behind closed doors, back-channel negotiations intensify. Smaller Pacific nations, often overlooked, demand a seat at the table, arguing that their security and livelihoods depend on lasting solutions. Global powers, wary of escalation, offer mediation and economic incentives to encourage compromise. Amid the flurry of diplomacy, new alliances take shape. Countries once at odds find common ground in their desire for stability and prosperity. The world watches as these diplomatic efforts unfold, knowing that the success or failure of these initiatives could define the Pacific's future for generations to come. As diplomats race to broker peace, a quieter battle rages beneath the surface, one driven by technology and intelligence. Nations across the Pacific rapidly upgrade their surveillance networks, deploying fleets of AI-powered drones and autonomous underwater vehicles. These machines sweep the skies and seas, gathering real-time data, tracking naval movements, and monitoring disputed territories with unprecedented precision. Satellite constellations beam high-resolution images to command centers, where advanced algorithms sift through terabytes of information. Human analysts work side by side with artificial intelligence, piecing together patterns and predicting potential flashpoints before they erupt. Cyber units operating from undisclosed locations probe digital defenses, searching for vulnerabilities and intercepting encrypted communications. Meanwhile, quantum encryption emerges as a new tool in the intelligence arsenal, promising unbreakable security for sensitive transmissions. Nations invest heavily in electronic warfare, jamming signals and deploying countermeasures to blind rival sensors. Private tech companies, eager to profit and protect, offer cutting-edge solutions, from next-gen radar arrays to networked early warning systems. In this high-stakes technological arms race, information becomes the ultimate weapon. The balance of power shifts not just on the waves, but in cyberspace and low-Earth orbit. As innovation accelerates, the region's future may hinge as much on code and circuits as on ships and soldiers. As the dust begins to settle over the Pacific, attention turns from conflict to recovery. The crisis has left economies battered, shipping lanes disrupted, investments frozen, and consumer confidence shaken. But out of uncertainty, new strategies emerge. Regional powers launch sweeping recovery packages, aiming to restore stability and jumpstart growth. Infrastructure projects accelerate, focusing on resilient supply chains and modernized ports. Governments negotiate fresh trade agreements, forging alliances with both old partners and unexpected new ones. Southeast Asian nations, long reliant on global trade routes, band together to create a shared economic bloc, pooling resources and lowering tariffs to attract foreign investment. Meanwhile, digital trade surges. E-commerce platforms, fintech startups, and cross-border payment systems become lifelines for businesses adapting to the new reality. Major players like Japan and Australia champion green technology and energy diversification, seeking to future-proof their economies against further shocks. The US and China, wary but pragmatic, cautiously reopen select trade channels, agreeing to new rules on critical goods and digital services. For millions across the region, recovery is personal. Factories reopen, jobs return, and hope slowly rekindles. The scars of crisis remain, but so does the determination to rebuild. Stronger, more connected, and better prepared for whatever challenges lie ahead. As the Pacific region embarks on its path to renewal, the world stands at a crossroads. The crisis has redrawn maps, not only of power and alliances but of trust and ambition. Old certainties have faded, replaced by new realities that demand resilience and adaptability. Yet, beneath the surface of progress, unresolved questions linger. Will the fragile peace hold, or are new flashpoints waiting to ignite? Can the region's economic revival outpace the specter of future conflict? And as technology races ahead, How will nations balance innovation with security and sovereignty? The Pacific's story is far from over. Leaders, businesses, and ordinary people now face a future shaped by hard-won lessons and unfinished business. Decisions made in the coming years about cooperation, competition, and coexistence will ripple across generations. One thing is clear: in a world more interconnected and unpredictable than ever, navigating uncharted waters will require not just strength, but vision, flexibility, and above all, the courage to imagine new possibilities. The next chapter awaits, written by those bold enough to shape it. In the wake of upheaval, Pacific nations are rewriting the rules of engagement. Old alliances are being re-examined, while unexpected partnerships quietly take root. Behind closed doors and across digital channels, diplomats are crafting a new playbook, one that blends tradition with bold innovation. No longer is diplomacy confined to grand summits or official communiques. Now it's forged in rapid response task forces, collaborative tech hubs, and even citizen-led initiatives spanning oceans. Smaller nations, once sidelined, are stepping forward, leveraging regional forums and digital platforms to amplify their voices and broker creative solutions. This evolving landscape demands agility. Leaders are investing in multilingual envoys, cyber diplomacy teams, and real-time intelligence sharing. They're navigating a maze of interests, balancing economic recovery with security, asserting sovereignty while fostering cooperation. Trust is the new currency. Every handshake, data exchange, and joint venture is carefully weighed. In this high-stakes environment, even subtle gestures, an emergency aid shipment, a shared vaccine rollout, a climate pact, can tip the scales toward stability or tension. As the Pacific's diplomatic chessboard expands, the question remains: who will master this new game, and what unforeseen alliances will shape the region's destiny? One thing is certain: the era of static diplomacy is over. The future belongs to those willing to adapt, innovate, and reach across divides to build a more resilient Pacific community. Beneath the surface of open diplomacy, an invisible battle rages on, a technological arms race where data, not just territory, is the prize. The US and China, already locked in strategic rivalry, are now pouring unprecedented resources into surveillance and cyber capabilities. From the depths of the Pacific to the farthest reaches of cyberspace, both nations deploy fleets of satellites, AI-powered drones, and sophisticated listening posts. Their goal: to monitor, predict, and outmaneuver each other's moves in real time. Undersea cables become high-value targets, quantum encryption and cyber fortresses rise, each side racing to secure their secrets while probing for vulnerabilities in the other's digital armor. Espionage, once the domain of spies in trench coats, now unfolds through lines of code. State-backed hackers launch silent offensives, disrupting communications, mapping critical infrastructure, and even influencing public opinion with precision-crafted disinformation. Meanwhile, new alliances form in the shadows, as nations pool intelligence and share advanced surveillance tech to counter shared threats. But this silent war comes at a cost. The line between defense and provocation blurs, and one miscalculation could trigger real-world consequences. As the US and China push the boundaries of digital warfare, the entire Pacific region holds its breath. The question is no longer just who controls the seas, but who commands the invisible networks that bind the world together. In this era of relentless innovation and hidden conflict, supremacy belongs to those who can see and shape the future before it arrives. As digital conflict intensifies beneath the surface, its shockwaves reach far beyond military strategy, rippling straight into the arteries of global commerce. The world's busiest trade routes, stretching across the Pacific, become collateral in this new era of uncertainty. Shipping giants, once focused on efficiency and profit, now navigate a labyrinth of digital threats and shifting alliances. Cyber attacks on port infrastructure trigger costly delays and spark fears of cascading disruptions. Insurance premiums for Pacific crossings soar, while companies reroute cargo to avoid contested waters, at the expense of speed and cost. Critical supply chains, from semiconductors to rare earth minerals, hang in the balance as trust in seamless global logistics erodes. For emerging economies, the stakes are even higher. Nations dependent on export-driven growth face sudden bottlenecks and market volatility, threatening jobs and livelihoods. Meanwhile, multinational corporations accelerate investment in cybersecurity and seek alternative routes, transforming ancient land corridors and Arctic passages into new battlegrounds for trade. As the digital Cold War heats up, the old rules of commerce no longer apply. The world watches nervously, knowing that a single cyber incident could spark a global economic crisis. In this high-stakes environment, resilience and adaptability become the new currency. The era of trade routes in turmoil has arrived, forcing every nation, company, and consumer to reckon with the unpredictable tides of a digitally contested Pacific. As the digital conflict redraws the map of Pacific power, experts and analysts from around the globe weigh in on what the future might hold. Some envision a fragmented region, where alliances splinter and each nation fortifies its own digital and physical borders. In this scenario, global trade becomes slower and more expensive, but potentially more resilient, as countries invest in redundancy and local supply chains. Others argue that the crisis could be a catalyst for unprecedented cooperation. Facing mutual threats, Pacific nations might band together, creating new frameworks for digital security, information sharing, and joint economic recovery. In this vision, the region emerges stronger, more interconnected and better prepared to withstand future shocks. Yet the possibility of escalation remains. Military strategists warn that as technology races ahead, the line between digital skirmish and physical confrontation grows dangerously thin. A single miscalculation could trigger a wider conflict, drawing in powers from beyond the Pacific and reshaping the global order. Meanwhile, economists predict that innovation will flourish in response to adversity. The pressure to secure supply chains and outmaneuver cyber threats could spark a new wave of technological breakthroughs, reshaping industries, jobs, and the very fabric of Pacific societies. No one can say for certain which path the region will take. But one thing is clear: the choices made in the coming years will ripple far into the future, determining whether the Pacific becomes a zone of rivalry and risk, or a proving ground for resilience and renewal.